It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
Mira comes charging out! Oh! This is enormous from Dave!
And, there you go. I'll give you the headset here, Sue, if you want to come up and join us.
All thanks to MECWACARE, a proud partner of the VAFA.
He runs around, he goes for goal! He does it!
What a goal from Tilly!
This is for the love of the game.
No, you keep at it, mate. Keep at it. There's a job for you somewhere.
The umpire's just given away a free kick, so hopefully this breaks up the game a bit.
Here's your host, Joey Pignataro.
Turn the mic on.
Hello everyone and welcome to For the Love of the Game. We are on the eve of the 2024 William Buck Premier Men's Grand Final, and Old Scotch are going to be joining Old Brighton in the big dance this Friday afternoon at Elstonwick Park. I cannot wait for this game to unfold. The first time since 2016 we won't have St Kevin's in the grand final. Unfortunately, they fell at the final hurdle. As I welcome in Jason Bennett alongside me, Joe Pignataro. We're both here for MECWACARE, a proud partner of the Ammo's, been around since 1959. Hello, Jace.
Hello, Joseph. What a wonderful matchup this promises to be as well. Old Brighton and Old Scotch. So much history with these two teams as wonderful clubs in the VAFA, but they've both been starved of success. Old Brighton, it's their third Premier Men's Grand Final. They made one in 2007 and lost. They made one in 2022 and lost. So they're chasing their first ever Premier Men's flag. They've won a couple of Premier B flags in 97 and 2017 and lost a few of those as well. So for them, it would be their first ever top flight premiership. And Old Scotch, well, it's their 17th Premier Men's Grand Final, but they're chasing their 10th flag, and that sounds impressive, Joe.
It is.
But 8 of those 9 came in 12 years from 1923 to 1934. Since 1934, they've lost 6 of their last 7 grand finals, so they've only won 1 premiership in 90 years. That was 1978. So for a club as storied and proud and powerful and wonderful as Old Scotch is, this has eluded them for almost a century, 1 in 90 years. What an opportunity. So no matter who wins this game on Friday, it is going to be a massive, massive moment for their respective club.
And 1978, of course, coached by the great Laurie Agarn, sadly passed away earlier on this year, but Laurie was a staunch supporter of the Ammos, and maybe there's just a little bit riding on that for people at the Cardinals. We better start off the top, Jace, before we have a look back at the preliminary final with the latest news, which has been tracking, of course, across Channel 9, Channel 7 and mainstream media, that unfortunately the captain of Old Brighton, Harry Hill, has failed in his bid, their attempt to get him up. It will be 20 days on Friday. The concussion protocols, of course, for community footy, 21. So he will not be taking his place. And Tom Fisher is the standing captain. He'll join us a bit later on to talk about this. Aidan Frenetic, from the flip side of things, he will miss. Walked off the ground in the third quarter with a hamstring injury, and a 6-day hammy has never been turned around that fast before, Jase.
Particularly in a grand final, and he was tearing it up. He was having a fantastic
a really
game.
good day.
Like I think he had 24 possessions to sort of halfway through the third quarter, and he was completely dominant. It was really disappointing for him and for the team. He had 24 touches, 9 clearances, 9 inside 50s to that point, and then limped off with that hamstring that you mentioned. So, look, Aidan Frenetic out on one side with all likelihood. Harry Hill definitely out on the other side. Kind of even themselves out, unfortunately. Both teams will, be a bit flat about missing 2 of their key prime movers, but mate, it sets up an incredible battle in the midfield, and we're going to see some new faces and different faces in there and a slightly different mix. And again, that's going to test the depth of both these teams.
Absolutely, it is. No question about that. Old Scotch will have their reserves still playing in the grand final this week, so they're able to at least train as a full squad this week, and potentially, who knows what Mark Nat's thinking at the moment, a few days out. Old Brighton have had a couple of weeks now to get a look at what Old Scotch did, particularly on the weekend and then leading into this game, and they obviously met at the back end of the home and away season. Before we do talk about the game, I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about this concussion protocol. So late in the broadcast on Saturday afternoon, after the game had been completed and we were just about to sign off, I asked Brent Sternberg and Simon Petch, who were with me, around their thoughts on this 21-day concussion protocol. And I'm staunch that, like you, the head needs to be protected. Absolutely. But my opinion on this, and I know Harry is the captain of Old Brighton, and Our competition is the test case for the first time after it was announced 6 months ago. I feel like we may need to have a look at, as a community football guidelines, a case-by-case structure going forward, because it is a severe penalty, unfortunately for Harry. But in his case, he has ticked every box up to this point of the protocols, the 12 steps that the AFL guidelines ask all of players from AFL right down. If he's still showing symptoms, by all means, you go and err on the side of precaution, and he is not playing this week. But if Harry Hill is ticking all the boxes from here on, 2.5 weeks afterwards his injury, if it's the 23rd player, as I said on Saturday night, the same system should apply. That I think there should be a bit of leniency in this. It's such a harsh penalty for 21 days if you're showing zero symptoms 2.5 weeks after the incident. Well, what's your view on the concussion protocols?
I think you have to...
Now, mind you, I don't expect us to come up with a solution right here, right now. This is a complex, very complex issue.
Yeah, I would say that you would have to... You're right, it's really complicated. And part of the reason it is complicated is because there is so much grey area. Every case is literally different when it comes to concussion. You do your knee, you do a shoulder, you've got a fairly good indication if you do this, you tick that box, you move on to this phase. And there's a certain timeline attached to that. With concussion, there simply isn't. So my concern, or the concern of those who are pushing back against any sort of wiggle room on the regulation, would be that it opens too big a Pandora's box. It opens too big a grey area. It's already murky enough. At some point, you have to draw a line in the sand and say, right, that is the regulation. And you know what? There's going to be some hard luck stories. And there's going to be some people that sneak in by a day.
Unfortunately, we're missing Harry by
Correct.
10 hours.
Correct. And you might go, well, look, that's crazy, or surely we can work around that. Okay, but then the next situation comes up, and then the next situation comes up. Do we have an ability at community football level to provide the same level of medical care across the board? Well, of course we don't. Some clubs are more financial than others. Some clubs have got more resources. Some clubs have got access to medical professionals that just happen to be involved in their club. So therefore, there isn't the same regularity that there is at AFL level.
Correct.
Okay, at AFL level, there's procedures in place. There's structures in place at AFL level. You've got a certain amount of staff. You've got certain things. At community level, it differs so much. So then you've got this difficult sliding scale of, okay, well, can you talk us through what you've done for your player over the last 21 days? And it's going to be very different at different clubs. So for the sake of simplicity to a point, they draw a line at a particular day. It's 20 days, it's 21 days, it's 22 days. It's almost, in a way, irrelevant to the point that we're making. But this is it. This is the line.
Yep.
This is the line. And because we're at community level, it's just too difficult to start doing individual assessments. Who assesses that? How do we go through that process? There's thousands of community clubs. If we open the door on that, how on earth does that get regulated? So that would be the pushback. I totally understand and accept what you're saying. And in a practical world, if this was an isolated one-off case and it had no repercussions for the rest of community football around Australia, you'd say, well, look, what difference is 9 or 10 hours going to make? You could make that argument. But we're not in that isolated vacuum. We're in a vacuum where if we set a precedent here on this, that now flows to every single community football club across Australia, which means anytime there's a concussion, who on earth is going to be, like, are we setting up some sort of national concussion assessment panel? That's the problem. And I think that's probably the reason, the main pressing reason, why at the end of the day, it's not actually about Harry, and it's not even about this particular case. It's about the precedent that it would set if you start to say, well, we'll assess everyone individually. That's just not practical.
No, I tend to agree with you on that side of things. So they're the two, I guess, angles that we're going to put forward today. And we'll leave it there because, as I said, otherwise we'll be here for an hour. We'll probably go nowhere. And Tom Fisher going to join us shortly. I'll have a thought then when we talk to Tom. Let's talk about the game on the weekend, because on the field it was cracking for 3 quarters and maybe 5 minutes. It was such an arm wrestle, such a tussle. You could not help but be proud of St Kevin's for the way they've fought throughout this year, from the things that they've experienced, and we've unpacked them a few times on For the Love of the Game this year, to get to three-quarter time, a goal behind Scotch, who have probably been the second best team to Brighton, and at different times probably even been the first team ahead of Old Brighton at different points throughout the year, and you get to three-quarter time and it was on for young and old, Jase.
Well, what we saw in the first three quarters is two teams that were both so defensively sound, and their ability to maintain constant pressure prevented either of them from breaking away. Now, Scob had the overwhelming amount of inside 50s. They controlled territory, and at halftime it was 30 inside 50s to 13. And Scob have been so potent inside 50 with their key forwards across the year, the likes of Paddy Kerr and Sam Tucker. Paddy was held to just 4 touches in the first half. So then the question became, okay, can they find another way to score? And Scotch just didn't let them. No. It was an incredible performance. So 30 inside 50s to 13 at halftime, and they trailed by 9 points. So Scotch were the ones that were much more effective and efficient. And then when the game eventually did break open in that final term, I'm fascinated on your thoughts as to how did Scotch make that happen?
Oh, they just actually won it at the source. And I don't know whether that is a fatigue on the great man Billy Coates' part, who was asked, obviously, in game 200 to ruck the full 4 quarters, as he does. He is an absolute workhorse, and this is not a slight on Billy at all, but you've got Will Clark and Sam Grant, who had worked him over throughout the day. You've got James Tarrant. If it goes into the forward line throughout the first half, they wanted to hold Will Clark for as long as possible. It's almost like you're keeping the horse in the gate just a little bit longer and then let him explode, as he did in the final quarter when they isolated him, one out in the goal square.
The first half, Scob dominated inside the inside contest, and Old Scotch were good enough to turn them back defensively.
Yeah, Charlie Cormack was a big factor in that particular piece of play.
And as you said, the game started to turn in the third term, and Old Scotch started to even things up on the inside. So suddenly the territory battle started to even out as well. They weren't having to start their attacks from deep in their own defence, Old Scotch. And then by the last quarter, that transformation was complete. The script had been completely flipped on its head. Scotch were winning the inside battle now and putting that enormous pressure on the Scob defence. And in the end, Scotch just managed to break the damn wall.
Just the weight of numbers in the end. I go back 12 months ago and the same thing happened to the University Blues. We went in at three-quarter time last year, 3-11-29 to 4-5-29, thinking, here we go again. We've got a close grandstand finish. St Kevin's walked all over the team that had the heartbreak in the first semi-final with 9 goals in the last quarter. We go here, 6 points the difference. James Tarrant's first 10 minutes was enormous at centre-half forward, and again, Will Clark, the last 20 minutes, I have not seen a ruckman in William Buck Premier probably in the last 5 years do what he did. And he didn't actually ruck. He was just in the forward line.
Yeah, but that's to your point of having Sam Grant be able to go in and do that ruck work. The thing that I love about the matchup that this now sets up is you've got two teams that are both incredibly resilient. Old Brighton and Old Scotch. They will hang in, and they will hang in. So it's going to take something really special to break that game open at some stage. And the question then becomes, well, who can do that? Brighton have had the extra week off. Scotch will be battle-hardened. Two different approaches as to how they come on in. We know that Old Brighton are very good on the inside, so they may get that early inside ascendancy as Scob did. The question then becomes, can they convert that territory into score? And then if they do, when Scotch eventually start to get the game on the inside, maybe going back their way late in the game, can they then charge back? And we've seen Scob do that to Old Brighton a couple of times, right? Old Brighton get out in front and Scob come back hard at them over the journey, and Old Brighton have either been able to hang on or they've just fallen short. So it makes for great storylines in-game throughout the game, and you sort of get the feeling that this game won't be over even if one team gets 4 or 5 goals in front, because the other team has got the ability to win the arm wrestle back. When it just looks like they're about to get put away, they can flip a switch and get things going back on their terms. And when they do, they can score quickly.
I'm not sure I've seen as big a momentum swings in games as I have in 2024. And obviously I spend a lot more time watching the AFL and the VFL than I have watched the Amos this year. But even just talking to a few of the coaches, when momentum is on their side, it's incredible. When it's not on their side, it's impossible to stop. And like you said, 4 or 5 goals is not going to be much. I mean, you only need to go back to Brighton's last game where they were trailing against St Kevin's, but as soon as they got one, they were able to get 2, they were able to find a third, and they were back in the game.
They kicked 6 and 11 minutes, I think, on them to start start the game in against St Kevin's in one of those matchups, which is, extraordinary.
And even on the weekend just gone, so it looked like Scotch, for all money, were going to go into the three-quarter time with a 3-goal, 4-goal advantage. And Tom Jock was able to find some space on the outside. It was a fast track out at Elsternwick Park. We didn't have any rain. We didn't have too much wind at all. And Jockey was able to use his speed and his skills. And mind you, the skills of the collective, both sides, was unreal. For a preliminary final, when the nerves are there, the pressure's on, the kicking skills and the marking skills were certainly on show. I'd encourage anyone, if you want, to go back and watch the game. So Jockey was able to turn the tide back the way of St Kevin's. They just weren't able. 5 goals, 9. If that's looking at 7 goals, 4, we're in a different ball game. But I just think in the end, fatigue got hold of St Kevin's, and you can't begrudge them. I think you wrote in your piece that's on VAFA.com.au a couple of the quotes I gave you around just the year that they've had. You can't not factor that in. And one thing, aside from the game, was amazing to see Michael Pisker.
Yeah, wonderful.
There before the game, shaking hands with everyone that came near him. We are recording this on Tuesday. He has got major surgery today and our thoughts are with Michael, and we hope that does go well. The GoFundMe page still set up, but you cannot not factor that in when you're judging St Kevin's on their 2024 season.
Yeah, they've had a cumulative, I'd say, mental and emotional fatigue across the year. And that, you're right, that can't be dismissed. Their season turned on a dime when Michael went down, and obviously we saw they had the draw the week. They just weren't the same team. Well, and to get back to where they were and to be so close speaks volumes about them. And you mentioned in that piece that's on vafa.com.au that this is by no means the end of an era. No. They were beaten by a better team on the day after having a very difficult year, but they have the depth in place, they have the structure and the systems in place to be right back there on preliminary final day again next year, and things could be so different. They could have been straight into the grand final.
Well, they're a kick away, aren't
That's
they?
right. They could have been straight in, not even playing on the weekend. They could already be sitting there waiting for the winner of Old Brighton and Old Scotch. And then, as you say, on the weekend here, as is so often the case in big finals, it's about taking your chances when they come up.
Most certainly. And it does go to, again, 12 months ago, thinking about the University Blues. We're in that spot. They're in the grand final, 1 foot in, and the emotional, mental toll that you have to absorb a heartbreaking loss and find yourself getting remotivated for a prelim to go again. Now, Anthony Plugger-Lynch, credit to him. He's coached unbelievably well against the adversity he's had to face as a senior coach this year, because he's never had to coach in the situations he has. And he was so open and honest with us in the pre-game on Saturday, Jase, to the point where he is saying, don't get me wrong, I'm a competitive beast and I would love for us to walk off the ground winners. But today it's footy is in perspective here. We're talking about, in certain situations throughout the year, life and death.
Yep.
And footy is just a game of, at the end of the day, with a scoreboard. And if we're on the right side of it, fantastic. If we're not, hey, we'll just butter up and we'll go again next year. As long as we're connected, we're enjoying each other's company, that's the main thing.
So looking ahead to Old Brighton and Old Scotch, love to go inside the camps now and get a little bit of insight into how they're both preparing, how they're both feeling about this game, and what they're looking forward to.
And let's go inside the four walls of the minor premiers, the Tunners. I love when I go out to Brighton Beach Oval or any ground where I'm covering Old Brighton, and I go out there before the game and I go find my favourite man who wears the number 6. He's usually the vice-captain. He's been the standing captain a couple of times. His name's Tom Fisher, and he's been good enough to join us on For the Love of the Game. Hello, Fish.
Hi, Joey.
Great to chat to you in the lead up to...
Not supposed to have favourites in this business, Fish, are you? Don't worry. He calls everybody his favourite, Tom.
Definitely not. Harry's definitely his favourite.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think Harry's probably just watching on here going, what's going on here?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Harry. I was going to save this to warm into the interview, but let's go straight to the obvious one, Tom. He's not going to play, unfortunately, it seems, on Friday, which is a huge blow to, obviously, the game this weekend, but the whole final series. But that means the opportunity for you to lead the side as captain is staring you right in the face. First of all, how is Harry, and how has the week's been without him?
He's going okay. As you can imagine, it's pretty sort of flattening news, not just for him, but I guess the whole club. But you know the type of character he is. He gets on with it, and he's still just as involved as ever. And no matter what happens on the weekend, or on Friday, I should say, he'll certainly be part of it. So he's certainly keeping a brave face at the moment, and still training with us and the like. So it's all system goes for Friday. But yeah, we'd obviously love to have him out there, but it's just one of those unfortunate ones.
From a structural perspective, Tom, who soaks up his minutes in the midfield? Because for you guys to go out and win that game in the second semi without him and not sort of miss a beat despite missing one of those key cogs was pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, Fraser Gregson and Hamish Dick usually play a bit more sort of down forward, but they certainly stepped up their minutes against St Kevin's. Fraser especially was doing a lot of grunt work in there, but it's just an opportunity for other people to step up. And, we've got 5 or 6 of us who sort of work through the midfield. So it's just an opportunity for people to step up to the plate without Harry out there.
What about for you, Tommy? You had the experience of 2022 in the final series and playing in the grand final against St Kevin's. It's staring you in the face again on Friday. Another opportunity to bring home the trophy to Brighton Beach Oval for the first time in the club's history in A grade.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think we learned a lot from that a couple of years ago. It was a wild finals run there where we beat OMs and then to get into finals and then won the first 2 and unfortunately lost to Skevs at the big dance. So this time's been a little bit different the way around in terms of being minor premiers, but we've certainly learned a lot and matured a lot as a group, and the boys are certainly ready to go on Friday.
You managed to dodge the Tullamarine flu this year, Tom. You guys have all stayed together as a group and you made that pact at the start of the year. Has that been something that has driven you? You guys all collectively sort of said, hey, this year we are going to fully commit to this. We realise we're in the window, we can win it, but we've got to stick together.
Well, I think people more so just ran out of money because half the team went last year, so I think anyone had the funds to go this year. But no, I think
did you head off?
Something that I went through a couple of weeks.
You were the only one, weren't you? Was there a bit of heat on you, Tommy? Did you feel a few eyes staring in the back of your head when you announced, I'm off to the French Riviera?
I did cop a few words from some of the older people at the club, but no, I said last year that I'm definitely going to go away this year because I only went for 3 weeks, so I missed one game. But yeah, no, it was certainly something we looked at, and I think it was just more so. Just last year, everyone, not just our team, but a lot of people wanted to get away, and this year we were fortunate that we had a lot of numbers who weren't doing those extended trips, and also we've been pretty healthy as well. So I think in order for a team to be successful, you certainly got to have numbers on the park and build that consistency, which we've been able to do. Last year was obviously a different story with, having sort of 50, 55 players go through the ones, whereas this year has been a lot more of a consistent group who's sort of formed a connection, and yeah, we're pretty healthy too, which is great.
So you're a fan of the double bye in the middle of the year. Do you think that's a good initiative from the VAFA to be able to effectively go away for 3 weeks in the middle of the season and not miss any footy? Does you reckon that helps retain players and encourage guys to stay with it?
Oh, definitely. I think it's we obviously didn't have it last year, and I think it sort of has an effect on. And not only the seniors, but the reserves. Like there were a couple of teams last year that did forfeit. So I think just this year having that double bye, it really gives an opportunity for players to get away and not actually miss a game. Like I was away for 3.5 weeks and only missed 1 game. So I certainly think it's an aspect of our comp that's really good. And obviously we don't get paid in the VAFA, so. In order to give players an opportunity to get away for a little holiday or a mid-season break, I certainly think it's worthwhile.
I absolutely agree with Tommy, and I know, having done this, Jase, for 7 or 8 years now, it's a nice little mid-year refresher when you get right into the winter grind. I know you've got King's birthday weekend where basically no local footy is played, and then the Amos, particularly in the Premier divisions, will have the weekend off. You still have divisional football playing in the Amos, so if you do want to get your footy fixed, by all means you can go out and watch some of the lower divisions. But I do agree with Tommy, when it comes to the top tier and the amount of pressure that is asked of the players in William Buck Premier and in Premier B that to have a couple of weeks off in the middle of the year to go away and refresh yourself and come back for a big tilt. I'd love to see something tweaked after the 3 weeks we come back and then there's another bye before another 3 weeks. Tommy, I mean, we're not going to solve the world's issues today and it's probably one for the postseason, but maybe we can look at the way that changes. Maybe there's something in putting it at the end of round 18 before the final series so that, Jase, we don't have a situation like we've just spoken about with Tommy where Harry's unfortunately going to miss, and it could be anyone. I used Ollie Barter's name on the weekend, where if that happens in round 18 and if we're going to do what we're doing this year and playing a grand final on a Friday, you get an extra week to potentially be right should, like Brighton have, advanced to the grand final already.
Yeah, it's certainly worth thinking about. As we look ahead to the grand final this week, Tom, what are you expecting from Old Scotch? Tell us about what they do well.
Well, they're a great outfit. I certainly think they certainly touched us up last time out at Camberwell. So, look, they move the ball well. They're a really solid, experienced outfit with, some big bodies, but also a really good spine. So they'll certainly be a challenge. And, they've played some really good footy this year and, obviously deserved to make it into the granny. So I think there's definitely some aspects of their game that we'll try and shut down. But I think at the same time, they're a very experienced outfit that's going to be a very tough opposition come Friday.
Yeah, number one in the comp for disposals. They like to chain together that uncontested possession chain and control the football. From your side of things, how did you guys finish minor premiers? What was it about your game that you feel like you do quite well and have a competitive advantage over other teams like Old Scotch?
Yeah, I think the first thing comes down to sort of the connectiveness and having numbers on the park throughout the year, which has been great. We've had a really solid list to choose from. Our twos have made finals for the first time in a while as well, so that certainly helps in terms of depth. I think it just comes down to the basics of effort, pressure around the footy, contested ball. That's sort of the thing we like to pride ourselves on, which we have for a number of years.
Well, we're looking forward to it on Friday afternoon, 2:30 at Elstonwick Park. Just before I let you go, Tommy, I want to go into your headspace on the final 5 minutes of the game against St Kevin's 2 weeks ago now. It's very similar to what happened last year with Collegians and University Blues, where it looked like St Kevin's were going to get it done, and then I don't think I've seen a better goal than Ben Pryor's before the Sam Flockhart goal to win the game. Did you think at all he was going to kick that until he actually kicked it?
Oh, he is a very, very good set shot, Benny. So when he missed the one about, I think it was 10, 15 minutes earlier, I knew he wasn't going to miss this one.
Yep.
But, he hit it sweet. It was good. And it was just, I think we had about 4 behinds in a row before that, so we needed something to go our way, and thank God he did kick it. But yeah, no, it was just a really, really tough matchup against St Kevin's the other week, and I think both teams were absolutely knackered after that one. But when Benny kicked the goal, it certainly gave us that little bit of belief and an extra drive to try and get that win in the last 10 minutes.
You work in commercial real estate. You have the pleasure of working alongside Sammy Flockhart. Have you been on coffee duty, washing his car, the whole thing for the last 2 weeks? I'm sure he's reminded you plenty of times that he got you the weekend off.
There's certainly a pep in his step around the office, as there always is with Sammy. But no, he's been good, and he's been one of those players that's he's certainly had some big tasks week in, week out, and he just gives it his all each week. Billy Coates, obviously one of the premier ruckmen in the comp. He knew he had his work cut out for him, but Sammy just keeps turning up and turns up with a smile on his face. And he's a young fella, but he certainly cracks in, and we love playing with him.
What did you learn from the grand final experience 2 years ago that you can take into this one? Makes you feel like you're better prepared?
I just think, you just can't take these moments for granted. Getting to a granny is it's really hard, and winning one's even harder. So it's just pivotal moments in games where that's when it's won or lost. So when there's an opportunity to step up, I think people need to take those chances. And as a group, it was a tough loss a couple of years ago, and we've certainly regrouped from that. We've matured a lot more, and we've certainly taken the steps we've needed to build a team that can get us not only to the granny but win one. So hopefully we can so what we've got on Friday and try and take that next step.
I can tell you what they'll do, Jase, this week, Brighton. They'll kick more than 3 goals, which is what they were stuck on in 2022. That weekend in particular, as Tommy will know, the game was scheduled to be at Elsternwick Park and then turned into a lake. So we moved the game to Trevor Barker Oval. Still wet and windy on the Sunday, Jase, but they'll kick more than 3 goals because the forecast for Friday looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, which is fantastic news. Expecting a great crowd out there at Elsternwick Park on the public holiday on Friday. The expectation and the anticipation, obviously, Tom, it was pretty evident early in the season that Brighton were going to be a contender. You had the game. When you play the game on your terms and get control, you're good enough to beat anyone. How has the expectation inside the club and inside the group sort of developed and been managed, and what's sort of been the internal narrative this year about, come on boys, is this the year you finally win the flag for us?
I think, Soupy, Marcel, certainly, he hasn't put a ceiling on anything. It's just more so sort of been step by step and, getting the processes right week in, week out. And essentially just giving yourself a chance. So the confidence is certainly built and has been building over the last, 6 to 8 weeks as you do creep closer to finals. But I think it's the work you do early in the season and build the confidence with the group you've got, find out different players who can play different roles and what's the best fit for the team. And then, once you get to the stage of September, essentially you just give yourself a chance. That's all you need to do, and the confidence should be there from the last sort of 8 to 9 months of work that you've done.
Well, Tommy, we are very much looking forward to this game on Saturday. Old Brighton and Old Scotch. On Friday, my apologies. Yes, I'm so used to Saturday footy, Jase. Friday afternoon at 2:30, Elsternwick Park. Old Brighton taking on Old Scotch. And Tommy, you'll be leading out the Tunners as the captain. Thanks for joining us. Good luck, mate. We'll see you out there.
Good luck.
Thanks, Jase. Thanks, Joey.
Great to spend some time with Tom Fisher, who will be leading out Old Brighton, as I said, as the captain on Friday. Let's flip over to the Cardinal side of things. And the captain wears the number 1. His name is Andy Jelbart. He's been there for a very long time. He gets the opportunity to do what so many people at Old Scotch have dreamed about doing, Jay, since 1998, leading out the team in A grade into a grand final. And Andy Jelbart joins us on For the Love of the Game. Hello, Andy.
G'day, guys. Thanks very much for having us. It's good to be here.
Congratulations, mate, on getting through to the grand final. It was a tough affair on the weekend for 3 quarters, and then the table just turned in your favour and you walked all over St Kevin's in the final 30 minutes. What was it like out there on the weekend?
Oh, it was phenomenal, to be honest. It was like you said, it was a real arm wrestle for the first 3 quarters, and then we were able to kick away in the last. We got a lot of love and respect for Plugger and Critch and what they do down there at St Kevin's, and to beat a great team in St Kevin's was, truly memorable, to be honest. But I think it just goes to show how fit we are and showcasing some of our youngsters and the brilliance that they bring with their speed and their agility, which is great.
Defensive resilience, also impressive, Andy, as it has been for you guys all year. We look at Old Scotch and we always talk about, the amount of possession that you get, your number 1 disposal team in the comp, and you love to control the football. But on the weekend, in that first half, St Kevin's had 30 inside 50s to 13 on you, yet you guys led by 9 points. It was an amazing performance from your defensive group.
Oh, yeah, they're very strong down there. They certainly know, how to play the structures, how to play the man. And you've got guys like Charlie Cormack who have spent a bit of time in the VFL system, and Doug Lawrence leading the charge down there. It's going to be pretty hard to break through on any given day.
And off the back of that, you guys, as I say, love to chain up and get involved. Tell us a little bit about your midfield group, and for people that haven't seen a lot of Old Scotch throughout the year that might be tuning in on Friday, what to expect.
It's changed a little bit over the course of the year. Obviously, we had the injection of Izzy in the first part of the year. He's hurt his ankle and off to Europe now. And then, we lost Aiden Frenetic on the weekend as well, which doesn't do us any favours. But, we've got a really good balance of strong inside mid bodies as well as some speed and agility used on the outside. Good young kids like Henry Brown showcasing his skills where he can and sneaks forward for a snag or two every now and again as well.
You were lurking around third and fourth for much of the season in that group with sort of collegiates and old Zabs, and we were sort of asking the question of who's going to step up and challenge the top two teams, which were Brighton and St Kevin's. How much confidence and belief did you guys get out of knocking both those teams off on the run to September?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, it was really. How do I put it? It was great to knock them off, you're right, but it was also confirming and reconfirming that what we do is actually working. Both the systems, the structures, the team over talent, the connection piece that we're really trying to push forward with all the young guys throughout the club, both ones and twos, males, females, and under 19s. It's sort of starting to show that what we're doing really works, and it's bringing the group together time and time again. And when you can put a couple of wins on the board like that, sort of shows internally that we're doing the right thing and externally that we're not just here to make up the numbers, which is really exciting.
You talk about connection right throughout the club, and that's that whole, multiple teams, one club philosophy. I mean, it's been an incredible season from you guys to have. You've made the seniors and the reserves grand finals in both the Premier Men's and the Premier Women's. I mean, that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, isn't it? I was there on Sunday watching the girls, and they're just a great group. We probably had, I'd say, 40 of the boys players there, both the ones and twos, the whole side there, watching and cheering along. And go back to the club rooms afterwards. We were obviously drinking waters and Pepsis, which was a bit unfortunate. But to watch the girls celebrate with them is just it's awesome to be a part of. And we're just really lucky that we've got a great club environment that's headed up by Will Strange and Natty, and that's a couple of their key focus points, especially over the last couple of years, is that connection piece, that one club mentality, and how we're making it more enjoyable for, essentially we're a community club, no one gets paid, so how we make it more enjoyable and make sure everyone, gets some enjoyment out of it.
Jelly, you mentioned Mark Natt as part of that answer, and it's interesting just hearing you talk about knocking over a couple of those teams that you've been around the mark with over the last couple of years. If I go back 12 months ago, and I've had this discussion with Mark Natt a couple of times, these were the games that you fell over in terms of the home and away season. St Kevin's last year, Collegians last year, but I feel like 12 months on, your whole side is a lot more mature. They're a lot more trustworthy, particularly when it comes to your defensive aspect. You know what you're going to get from Old Scotch every single week. And your core group has been together now, and you've obviously been there probably the longest, but you've seen these young fellas develop into teammates of yours that you can trust every single week out in the park.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah, it's a great thing to witness, to be honest. Once you go through your 25, 26, 27 years of age, and you're probably prime years of footy are starting to get behind you, one of the things you really lean on and move towards is that development of the young guys. And one of your favourite players, Angus Simons, to watch his development go from this arrogant little 18-year-old who runs around and doesn't think anyone can catch him to now playing a vital team role week in, week out. His game is really about pressure acts and what he can do, pressuring the defenders as the ball's going out. And if he happens to kick a couple of goals, then he does, and it looks even better. But, development of kids like that has just been amazing to watch, and I'm glad that I can be a part of it. And, it's largely been because of Mark Natt's philosophy of, team over talent and making sure that we put our best foot forward and stick to the structures and the process as opposed to trying to win it off your own boot. And I think it is a great philosophy to live by, and it's certainly working for us. So it's good to be a part of.
I'm glad you mentioned Angus Simons. I'll ask you about him in a moment. There's one other player I want to talk about. We gave him best on ground on the weekend, and for mine, I think he's just a regular performer in your team. He wears number 24. His name's Charlie Cormack. He is, Lockie Natt's favourite player. Lockie, of course, is the son of Mark. He's the first magnet that goes up on the whiteboard if you ask Lockie. But Charlie has been that reliable player and probably in some ways unassuming and underrated. I know he's been part of the Big V program for the last 2 years, so it shouldn't surprise anyone that I am talking about Charlie Cormack. But maybe to the outside competition, outside of Scotch that is, he's someone that I guess you don't really see a lot of, but he performs week in, week out, Andy.
He certainly does, and he's a marvel to watch. I'm sure you get a lot of benefit watching from the sidelines and commentating on what he can do, but seeing him hang in the air and take some great grabs as well as delivery and his drive off half back is nothing short of spectacular, to be honest. And I'm just glad he's on our team and we don't have to try and deal with him as an opposition side. Yeah, he's great to watch and been a really strong leader this year as well. He's certainly stepped up when required. He's a bit more of a quieter guy by nature, but certainly loves his footy and loves being a part of a team environment.
Looking ahead to Old Brighton, what's on the scouting report this week and what goes on the whiteboard as the 2 or 3 key things, key messages that you want to send the players out with come the first bounce on Friday?
Yeah, it's a great question, to be honest. There's a lot to look at, but you got to be careful you don't overanalyze it. I mean, the thing that we probably take great confidence out of is what we've done the last couple of weeks has been working. And sometimes, like you saw in the weekend, it does take to the fourth quarter. I'm assuming it's going to be a pretty hot, contested battle, especially early. But if we can stick to our structure and play our game, we're going to come away with the goods. So, there's a few very good players at Brighton we're going to have to match up on and make sure that we try and take their skills away from them. But again, if we can play our game and do what we've been doing the last couple of weeks, I'll have no doubt that we'll get there.
Talk to me about Angus Simons, please, Jelly. You can't do an interview with anyone at Scotch and not bring up the little fella in the number 6. As you said, he used to show a fair bit of smart arsery. He used to run around against Zavs and run the length of the ground when he kicked a goal. Now he's playing his role. I think in the first half he was pivotal in the first 3 or 4 goals that you guys kicked.
Yeah, that's right. He certainly is, and he's the same, to give everyone else out there a bit of an understanding of Simo, he's the same off the ground with his own teammates as he is on the ground, so he's no different. But he's a character. He's a great kid to have down at the footy club, and his learning development has been amazing to watch. We put some pretty hard words to him towards the end of last year and sort of suggested that, he needs to make sure that he plays within the team. No one is bigger than the team. And he's taken that feedback on and grown with it. And you can just see in the last couple of weeks what it's done for his game. He's been able to apply as much pressure and, affect the defensive kickouts and whatnot when he can. And then the goals just come on top of that. He's a marvel to watch and he's a really exciting player. And he's another one of the guys that I'm just glad he's on our team because I certainly couldn't catch him.
I think we may have given him best on ground, Jase, against Collegians in the semi-final, and he was pivotal early on in the game. And one bloke that was pivotal in the last quarter when you were running on top of the ground, the first 5 minutes was James Tarrant. And then this big bloke, Will Clark, fair dinkum, Jase. I've never seen a bloke this size.
Wasn't he moving well?
Do what he did to the point, Jelly, where I was moved to say, and I'll repeat it right now, he was taking the piss. Absolutely taking the piss, the way he was going around in the forward half.
But, I mean, he's had a standout year this year, big Will Clark. But it should be no surprise. If you've watched him play throughout the year, he is a serious footballer. He's actually the captain of the Old Scotch Cricket Club as well. So he's good at just about everything he does. Whether you watch him throw a gridiron ball out in the oval or cricket or footy, he's a serious talent. And this year he's just, stepped up again and been able to play a pivotal role in the ruck for us. And then, of course, when he gets in front of goals, he can turn on a dime, 50, 55 out and bang one home, which is pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, though, he does go into the Hall of Fame, Jase, because he joins the club of F-bombs live on radio in the post-game. So I'm not sure we'll be chatting to Will after this week if Scotch are to be successful. Now, Jelly, if Scotch are to be successful and you become the first premiership captain since 1978 in A grade, I mean, have you had a moment yet this week to let your mind wander that far to, first of all, what it would mean to you and how it would sit with you that you'd be the first premiership captain in 46 years at the Cardinals?
Yeah, I have thought about it. Probably not necessarily myself personally being the captain, but what it means to the club and the community and the players, etc. You just said it there. First win since 78, it would be, monumental to the club and the wider community. At the moment, there's sort of like a certain buzz around the club and a real confidence of what we're doing means that we're on the right track. As you mentioned, the 2 girls in the grand final, 2 boys teams in the grand final, it gives us real confidence that what we're doing is right. I think a win on top of that would, again, cement the fact that, we've probably got a a few years in this good young group, and it reinforces that what we are doing is the right thing to do, and therefore we can continue on this journey and have a lot of success in the coming years. From a team and a personal point of view, I'd just love to be able to give back to the community that's given me so much. You know, some of the old guys that come down week on week on week to watch us play, and they get so much enjoyment out of seeing us win and then seeing us progress this far into finals. It would be awesome to be able to, you know, give them the cup that they deserve, or reap the rewards that so many people have gone and played for Old Scotch without success in the last 46 years, that if we could give them something back, that would be really special, I think. Not just to me, to everyone who is fortunate enough to play on Saturday. I think that'd be an amazing achievement. And I'd be really, really happy to sort of walk the cup back into the club rooms, the after function, and just watch it go around and watch the smile on people's faces. I think it'd be awesome.
It most certainly would be. Mate, thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to watching this one on Friday. Of course, it'll be on 11:16 SEN, Community TV and vafa.com.au. Jase, it's wall-to-wall ammos on Friday afternoon.
Yep, the live stream, live and free on vafa.com.au. It's live on the SEN app. And if you're at the ground, take your earbuds or your headphones along and you can enjoy SEN Stadium real-time live commentary of the game while you're watching it over the fence, and it should be an absolute belter. Andy, thanks so much for your time, mate. Best of luck.
No worries, guys. Thanks very much for having me. All the best.
The 2024 VAFA William Buck Premier Men's Grand Final, Friday, September 27th at Elstonwick Park. A huge public holiday crowd will pack VAFA HQ and watch the top two teams fight for their slice of football history, and you can enjoy the day in style. Tickets are available for our match day function and include a delicious carvery, a 2-hour drinks package, and entry to the big game. It's the VAFA William Buck Premier Men's Grand Final. Head to the VAFA website to grab your tickets now.
This is For the Love of the Game, the official podcast of the Ammos. We're here all thanks to MECWACARE, comprehensive William Buck Premier Men's look just before the break. Let's turn our attention to Premier B. Now, I told you last week, and Paddy Grindlay is about to join us. He's on location after the weekend just gone. I told you De La Salle would come up as the 10th best side in William Buck Premier. I didn't predict 96 points, though, Jase, was going to be the final margin, as I welcome in Paddy Grindlay, who is the scribe for Premier B. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, Joey. Hello, Jase. Lovely to hear your voice.
Where are you coming to us from, Patrick? Is that birds I can hear in the background?
Yeah, I think so. Got the serenity going down in Bonnie Doon at the moment.
Just listen to that serenity.
Stay over. Working from home, but working from location, so really cannot complain whatsoever.
Paddy, you didn't have to go that far if you frustrated De La Salle people that much that you had to leave.
He's in witness protection.
You had to go out to Bonnie Doon. It's not that bad, mate.
Oh, well, look, it was a pretty comprehensive result, gentlemen, on the way. The Bloods certainly took apart D-La, unfortunately, 18-15, 129 to 5-5-35. They've been the best team in it. From really day dot throughout the season, started with the 2 losses. We were a little bit worried, I think, from that point on. It's been 14 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss for the Bloods. So it's great to see them crowned. It's probably the reward they have. We've got the Premier that we deserve out of Premier B, and it is a shame that we didn't quite get the closer result, but, still Daniel Ward, I'm good for him and I'm thrilled for everyone down there at Old Haileybury. They've had a wonderful season.
Paddy, margin aside, I think it is the result we sort of expected, given you can mount a case that potentially D-La played their grand final last weekend, that incredible finish against Trinity to book their spot not only in the grand final, but back up to A grade, as we did talk about last week.
Yeah, it was something I did ask to Nick Highland on the phone yesterday. Sort of mentioned to him, did you feel like you had already played your grand final? Did you get the team up? He pushed back pretty strongly on that idea. He was more speaking about, they were sore across the week. They were expecting that was going to be the case. They knew that was going to happen. Their issue was just that the game Old Haileybury from the start, and D-La didn't exactly help themselves out. Lots of turnovers, over-possessing the footy. I think it was something about, I reckon there were 1 or 2 scores maybe that Haileybury had in the first half that didn't come direct from a D-La turnover. So it was not the performance that they were hoping, of course, on the grand final stage, but that's the benefit of our competition. They'd already lost the elevation to William Buck Premier, so that's where their focus will shift pretty quickly, I would assume.
It's an interesting little wrinkle that our competition has.
Wrinkle?
Well, the promotion relegation side of things, right? Meaning that winning the premiership can from an emotional perspective, almost be afterthoughts too hard a word, but you get this huge emotional high like D-La had on the weekend, or like Hampton Rovers, and we'll talk about Premier C shortly. You get that, and you almost feel like, in a sense, the job's done. Not saying that winning the premiership's not important, but when you have this huge emotional high, it's very difficult then to back up again, isn't it, Paddy? To sort of get back up to that level of emotion again a week later.
Yeah, and when you consider, I mean, Joey, I know that the last quarter of the Old Trinity D-La match, it was pretty much a war of attrition. And Daniel Ward was at venue and watching a few of the D-La boys cramp up early, watch a few of them sort of limp from the field, and did sort of think, we're in a good position here. But it must be said that I think Old Haileybury, they had D-La's number in the first final. Where they won.
Yeah, they won that by 7 goals.
Yeah, and then they had their number on this occasion again. You could probably the argument successfully that D-La didn't quite have the 4th, 5th and 6th gear to go to where Old Haileybury clearly did. But I think this is the situation that we have seen all year. If you look at the goal kickers, it's guys like Andreas Stefanakis, Charlie Harrop and Harry Jones, just dominant on the scoreboard. Charlie Sinclair's one that Daniel Ward wanted to shout out across half forward. I think he had something like 5 goal assists and 13 score involvements. Outstanding. It's just their weapons up front, and when you don't play a clean game against Old Haileybury, when you invite their pressure from their high half forwards and their midfielders, you are going to see results like this. I'm really interested to see what happens next year. We don't typically see squads that come up from Premier B stay up for 2 years. I think the last time, and Joey, you'll know this than I will, would have been Caulfield and Old Scotch in 2021, where they both stayed up. So that, of course, the caveat of 2020 not happening at all and 2021 being cut short. So it's now the question, I think, for both these squads is, yes, that they've secured promotion. Old Haileybury know exactly how it feels to be knocked straight back down the year afterwards. D-La haven't been up in William Buck since 2019. So what can they do across the off-season to ensure that this is not just a jump up for one season, but an extended period in William Buck Premier? So
just to your point, Paddy, Old Brighton and St Kevin's are the prototypes. Old Brighton, we talked about this just before, 2017, they played against Old Scotch in the Premier B flag. They did play A-grade finals the following year, and obviously St Kevin's came up in 2015 after being the B-grade premiers, missed 16 and have not missed a grand final up until this year. They're the prototypes that all clubs coming from Premier B up want to follow. In 2021, the Amos chose not to relegate any teams from the what was then the abandoned season. And in fact, it was actually Collegians and I think maybe Old Scotch in the bottom two. Caulfield had won 7 games in a row to finish inside the top 4 when the season was cut short. And the last part of the history lesson, Jase, just back on your thoughts around the wrinkle that you talked about, you will hear a lot of coaches across every section bar William Buck Premier in our competition say that the preliminary final win is for the club because that's promotion. The premiership or the grand final, that's for the players. It is, I don't know who started it. It's a time-honoured saying. That
we've already heard it a couple of years times
this year. And they'll just keep rolling it out. So I imagine that's why they get to that day and you go, well, we've already achieved the club significance that we want to achieve. Now let's just go out and have fun. And if we win, we win. If we don't, well, we're still going up next year.
Paddy, from an Old Haileybury and a D-La perspective, what do they need? What can they add? What do they need to add to be successful at Premier Men's next year and make sure they don't drop back down?
Well, it's a key question. I think for me, for Old Haileybury, you look at the name Stefanakis and Harrop, your eyes drawn to them, the Seckle brothers. What I'd love to see them at is just the depth around their VFL staff. I think you would have to say that when you've got a lot of gun VFL players, you are sort of in the hands of the gods about availability and where they end up. So they had the benefit of Andreas Stefanakis for the entire final series because Box Hill didn't make it. He played the 10 VFL games this year. Now you've got the stars. Now it's about adding the Andy Jelbarts, the Tom Fishers around them to ensure that they can have that stability when things get little bit tough across those middle games in the season where we do see teams start to fall away. It was the University Blues this year in William. Yeah, we don't know who it might be next year, but that's the issue I see. I think D-La are quite well positioned for that. They've been building this club for a little while. And it's interesting you say about the element of winning the grand final for the players. It's exactly what Nick Hyland's preliminary final address was built around. Made a point about saying to the players that this is now legacy. It's we've done what we wanted to for the club. We've achieved our aim in getting back to A grade, becoming an A grade club, not just in mentality but in the pitch as well. Now it's about what legacy they want to form. And I think they're still interested in that piece, regardless of the pretty emphatic defeat that they suffered on the weekend.
Well, I'm looking forward to baiting De La Salle next year in William Buck Premier. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, I know you
for
are.
the love of the game and going out to Waverley Park. You just talk about Old Haileybury again just for a moment, Jay. So I'm pretty sure it was 2023. Matthew Lloyd, of course, who coaches the APS side alongside Scott Pendlebury, coached them to the title, and this year they did fall short to Brighton Grammar.
They've been very strong at a school level.
Correct. So if they're able to keep those core young players, and St Kevin's, I've mentioned this already, they are the prototype. If they're able to keep these 1 point players, the old school boys, the old boys that come out of the college and stay at their team, there is no reason that they cannot solidify their spot and have sustained success in William Buck Premier going forward, Daniel Ward's team.
And then you look at Old Melburnians and Fitzroy, Paddy, that are going to drop back into Premier B next year. Your early thoughts on Premier B, the teams that are going to be in there next year, maybe some teams that are coming up from Premier C, or those that you've looked at in Premier B this year that thought, okay, they're not quite ready this year, but they're building. Who else do you look at and think, okay, they could be in for a decent year next year and be in contention?
I'll give you a bolter, Paddy, but you go first.
Oh, interesting. Well, yeah, I think I'll start with Old Trinity, who, of course, a kick away and an inch away, really, from a grand final appearance. I think be well and truly in the mix again. I think of the Old Melburnians and Fitzroy, I'm most confident in Fitzroy being able to bounce back. I really loved what I saw from them this year.
Yeah, the back end was fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, they had a pretty tough run when you look through who wasn't playing. And that, again, this is what I'm told Haileybury, through that middle part of the season where you lose some of your VFL players. Maybe you lose some players due to injury and availability. Their depth was probably a little bit short than what I would have liked to, but I imagine that they'll be fixing that one over the off-season. I'm fairly confident in Fitzroy. The eye, though, for me is drawn to Old Ivanhoe and Old Camberwell, who are up from Premier C, and I've been told by so many coaches across the competition that this doesn't usually happen. You don't usually see the teams that get promoted from the division underneath perform at such a high level. Both Old Ivanhoe and Old Camberwell could have made finals had things fallen their way, so I'm pretty confident that both of those teams will be back in the finals mix, knowing that now they can now compete with the top of Premier B. What are they going to do over the off-season to improve themselves? And Old Geelong is the other one, their first finals campaign ever. They came, again, a kick short of winning their first ever Premier B final. What's the next level for them? What does it look like from a coaching perspective? What does it look like from a player acquisition perspective? If I were to give you seedings, Joey, I'll go 1 Old Trinity and 2 Fitzroy, I think, to start with. I'll give you 3 Old Ivanhoe and 4 Old Camberwell.
Ooh, long-range forecast.
I like it.
Paddy, Grindlay.
I like it. No splinters here from Grindlay.
Okay.
What about Old Carey and Hampton Rovers?
Hang on a moment.
They've all got my number, Jase. They can hit me up.
I've got to give you my bolter for Premier B next year.
Go for it.
And it's neither Old Carey or it's definitely not the Hampton Rovers. The Peacocks, he's losing his way after the weekend just gone. Fruity messages are getting through thick and fast. But the bolter in Premier B next year, Caulfield Grammarians. They're going to have the Sats effect. They're going to have the Sats effect. Watch the influx of players that our man Paul Satterley is able to find in the next 6 months that help Caulfield springboard from 8th place on the ladder, nearly relegated by, 2% to C grade. Yes. They will play finals next year.
Well, there was a situation, Joey, where they won, I think, their first 4 games of the season, or they were in the top 4, and then they lost 12 on the trot. So, again, it's that depth piece. So, wouldn't that be a nice little rivalry that will develop between the Old Melburnians and Caulfield next year? Maybe the phone's being picked up by Sats to try and recruit a few red legs over to his new club. That could be a fun, evolving narrative.
I saw Sats on the weekend, Jase. He was very proud of the Werribee Football Club that, of course, he played for and won a Liston Trophy with. So he is up and about, ready for go for Caulfield.
And he'll be joining you and Paddy on our call of the Premier Men's Grand Final on Friday afternoon. Paul Sadley in special comments alongside Pignataro, Petch and Grindlay.
I can't wait
What an all-star lineup.
I can't wait to grill him, Paddy, in the pre-game about his decision to choose Caulfield as his new club. And if you're going to do seedings, I'll go Old Trinity. I'll put Caulfield up there. I'll put the Old Melburnians up there if they're able to keep the likes of Ben Harding, Jackson Payne, the Nichols brothers and the Hazeman boys. If they're still going to play next year, Paddy, I'll put Old Melburnians in my 4. And I think I like Jared Geeshan and Old Ivanhoe.
He did a great job on specials, did Jared Geeshan. He seemed like a natural.
Oh, so does that mean he could coach?
That's a message to us to unleash the geisha, I think.
Beautiful. Paddy, we're just about to let you go.
Before we do, let's get your tip for Premier Men's Grand Final. Who do you like, Old Scotch or Old Brighton?
Well, I am looking forward to sitting there across from Paul Sadler. I'm just going to throw names at him and getting to say yes or no whether he's going to try and recruit them. For the outcome of the game, this is as close to a flip of a coin as I could think throughout this season. The last time I saw these two squads play off against each other, it was a stirring fight back from Scotch to really relate with it at Royal Sports Ground. You look about how the teams have evolved since then. I think I'm tipping Old Scotch, gentlemen. I think that they're going to do the job on the larger ground over Old Brighton. They're going to come from outside the top two and win the premiership. Their first one since 1978.
Got a margin?
For 12 points.
Best of field?
Do you want a best on ground?
Yeah, give us a best on ground.
Jock Nelson medal. Best on ground.
Jock Nelson medal will be awarded to James Tarrant.
James Tarrant. And just to complete the quadruple, our first goal kicker.
You are milking me for all you can get, which I really enjoy. Go Jamie Hope.
Jamie Hope. He likes the names that start with J, does our man Patrick.
And while we got you there, your pin number?
Paddy, looking forward to spending Friday afternoon with you on 11:16 SEN. Are we starting at 1:30?
We are starting 1:30 live coverage.
Fantastic. Extra hour of a pre-game build-up before the first bounce. Bring your best, Paddy.
Absolutely, Joe.
Are you looking to grow your business? William Buck are more than just accountants and advisors who can develop strategic growth plans for your business. With over 125 years' experience, William Buck has expertise in navigating through challenging times and has been working closely with the VAFA community, creating positive change for individuals, businesses and community organisations. William Buck's team of specialist advisors work collaboratively, providing you with 360 support. Schedule a complimentary consultation today by visiting williambuck.com.
Jase, let's take a look at Premier C 2017 137. That's Old Carey. They are the premiers, beating the Hampton Rovers 7-6-48. And after the scarring of last year in the first semi-final, Simon Petch was not prepared to call the William Buck Premier game over early, but he was quite comfortable in the third quarter to say, I think Carey are going to be premiers over at Trevor Barker Oval. We did have an eye on this game, and they were simply awesome from the first bounce.
Yeah, they were fantastic. They led by 15 points at quarter time, and then they blew that out to 29 points at the half with 5 goals to 3 in the second term. At that point, you still felt like Hampton Rovers, if they could get their game going, could mount a fight back. But then that third quarter was a real third quarter blitz. The old cliched premiership quarter, they kicked 8 goals to 1 goal to and just completely took control. Speaking with Aaron Bailey and Mitch Wolfenden, etc., throughout the year, we knew that the speed was going to be the element for Old Carey. If they could get the game on their terms, get the ball to the outside and then use their speed and their run and their flair and their skill, they'd virtually been impossible to stop in Premier C this year, and that was indeed the case. So it was 71 points. The game was over by three-quarter time. They then got to enjoy themselves in the last quarter, and it was 4 goals to 2 in the last term, and they run out 89-point winners. Did it in absolute emphatic style, and congratulations to them on just an amazing season. Congratulations also to the Hampton Rovers. They both go up to Premier B next year. Old Carey will have a few teams in Premier B just looking over their shoulder, I reckon.
Absolutely they will, but they are a genuine Premier and Premier B team, are Old Carey. And Riley Thompson, I saw, kick 7 goals, if you don't mind. That's a handy day out for the Panthers and for Riley Thompson. Division 3 was also played on the weekend, Jason. I did see at quarter time of this game, it was 30 apiece. Now, St John's had kicked 5 straight. The Canterbury Cobras had kicked 4 goals, 6. And then they were able to just work their way away from St John's.
This was just a fantastic game. We said this last week, looking at the two teams and the way they'd matched up throughout the year, they both had games by less than a kick. This could be one of the grand finals of the year, and it turned out to be that way. It was a fantastic game of football at Hadfield. St John's led by a goal at three-quarter time. Canterbury then kicked 6 behinds to start the last term. And you just had that feeling watching the game. You're like, oh no, how many times have we seen this movie where a team's had all the play, they've dominated, they just can't kick a goal, and suddenly the other team's going to go down the other end and blow them away. Now, Canterbury kicked 6, as I said, 6 behinds to start the last term. They ended up in the end kicking 5-6 to a point. So they kicked 5 goals straight after kicking those 6 behinds, and they ran away. And they won the flag from 4th which is a wonderful performance against St John's. John Nicolopoulos kicked 4 goals. Brad Callagher kicked 3. They both provided a really strong target up forward. And the Wombat, Rowan Walmsley, bobbed up and kicked a goal as well. So in the end, they ran away to a 29-point win. The Wombat.
I like that.
Great performance from Canterbury. And credit again to St John's for a wonderful season. They went all the way through to that last quarter and they were right in it. And then in the end, Canterbury just got on top and managed to bang through the last 3 or 4 and kick themselves clear and just break the backs of St John's. So the King Cobras in Division 3 men's. Well done to Richmond Central in Division 3 reserves. They defeated North Brunswick by 17 points. So they reversed the back-to-back losses they had to them in round 18 and the qualifying final. Fast forward to grand final day and Richmond Central won that game by 17 points. We should also mention the Resi's results in Premier B and Premier C. In Premier B, it was Old Trinity defeating De La Salle by 16 points. So disappointing day for De La. They lost both the Resis
Lost both of them.
and the seniors.
Well, that's a sad day for Brian Waldron, isn't it?
And then, you look absolutely devastated by that.
I feel for him, yeah, tough.
And then Premier C, the Resis, Parkdale 10-16-76 defeated Ajax 5-7-37 by 39 points. So they were the minor premiers.
Mitch Brown playing that game, his 100th.
They repeated their second semi-final win over Ajax. So congratulations to Old Trinity Reserves and Parkdale Reserves for winning that. And then the other grand final of the weekend was the, before we get to Premier Women's, the Under-19 Division 4. Caulfield Grammar 11-12-78 defeated St Mary's Salesian 7-5-57 by 21 points. So Caulfield knocked over the minor premiers to win the flag from 4th in the final 5, which means they had to win 4 sudden death finals in a row, which they did by 39, 46, 80 and 21. St Mary's Salesian kicked 1-8 to 6-5 in the first half. And that was the game. It cost them the premiership in the end. They fell short by 21 points despite having just one less scoring shot. So what a performance from Caulfield. They've run the full gauntlet. It's not just a Final 4, it's a Final 5.
Yes.
So they had to win the elimination final, the first semi, the prelim and the grand final to do it.
That's terrific. And it vindicates what I said a little bit earlier on with Paddy Grindlay, that the Sats effect is going to have an impact at Caulfield because a number of those boys are probably now going to qualify to be playing senior football next year, whether it is in the reserves or in the seniors. But Sats will give them an opportunity, particularly if they're winning grand finals in under-19 level. Now, at halftime on Saturday, I was sitting there, obviously doing St Kevin's and Old Scotch in the William Buck Premier Men's, and we spoke to both Will Strange and Paddy Mount at the same time. And they then had to come back the following day because Old Scotch and St Kevin's were playing off in the William Buck Premier Women's Grand Final. And there was just a little glint in the eye of Will Strange because, of course, Scotch were leading at halftime of the men's game. And he thought, gee whiz, I might get one up here on Paddy Mount, not only today in the preliminaries, but I might also have a trophy that's not finally going to the TH King Oval. Scotch, awesome. Dean Anderson, masterstroke in the coach's box. They end the run of St Kevin's when it comes to winning a premiership. But still, congratulations to Tommy Purcell and the St Kevin's girls on reaching their 4th straight grand final. But Jase, they were pretty damn awesome. I reckon they held St Kevin's goalless to almost half time. I know they kicked a couple of late ones before them, but first 6 goals of the game.
Yeah, they kicked the first 6 and St Kevin's responded. We knew they would. Watching the game, you'd know that St Kevin's would at some point going to rally, and they did. They kicked 4 of the next 5 goals, got back within 3 goals, and it felt like it might be a replica of that second semi on the cards when St Kevin's ran over the top of them. Old Scotch fired their shot early and then St Kevin's managed to get on top and then just blew past them. But credit to Old Scotch, they just kept finding answers every time St Kevin's tried to rally. Jordan Mifsud finished with 4 goals. Eloise Defina kicked 2. A new Premier Women's champion. They ended St Kevin's remarkable 3-peat. Kate Stanton kicked 3 goals for St Kevin's, but in the end it was Old Scotch 10-4-64. Comprehensive winners over St Kevin's 5-2-32 by 32 points. And then speaking of comprehensive, in the reserves game, the Premier Women's Reserves, Collegians were the minor premiers. They came out, they kicked the first 7 goals of the game against Old Scotch, and then Old Scotch kicked 1 at the 6-minute mark of the second term. Collegians then kicked the last 7 goals of the game as well. So it was 14 goals to 1. Collegians had 5 multiple goal scorers in a brilliant team performance. 14-6-90, defeating Old Scotch 1-4-10 by 80 points. And Collegians clearly the dominant team in Premier Women's Reserves this year. They won their 2 finals by 56 and 80 points.
Wow. Well done to the girls of the Harry Trott Oval. And Jordan Mifsud, that is an awesome result, given, of course, she is a Lambert Pearce medalist in last year's VFLW competition, to come back to play at Old Scotch after a couple of games with the Port Melbourne throughout the year. That is an awesome effort. And, again, congratulations to Dean Anderson. Sets up a great week for the girls, as we heard from Annie Jelbart a bit earlier on. A full club to have both the seniors and reserves in the women's play on the weekend. And let's just go through it again for one last time. this weekend or this Friday, perhaps the reserve, definitely. The reserves are taking on the Old Zaverians, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct. Old Zabs versus Old Scotch.
Can someone please beat the Old Zaverians reserves in a grand final?
Friday at 11:30 at Elston Wick
Can
Park.
someone please beat them?
Well, Old Zabs were 16-1 in the reserves. They finished 6 points clear of St Kevin's, with Old Scotch 18 points behind, so 4.5 games behind. Now, Old Zabs then defeated Scob by 54 points in the second semi, while Old Scotch defeated Old Brighton by 43 in the first semi. The Cardinals then beat St Kevin's by 15 points in the prelim on the weekend. They trailed by a point at quarter time. They kicked 5-2 in the last term. Fraser Morrisby finished with 4 goals. So Old Zabs, even though they've come in unbelievably great form, they've only won one of their last 3 games. They drew with Old Brighton in round 7 and then lost to Old Scotch by 30 points in round 18. So they've lost to this team by 5 goals just a few weeks ago. Old Scotch have won their last 5, including that 5-goal win over Old Zabs. So it makes for a really interesting game. Old Zabs had cleared out on the field, but Old Scotch know that only just 3 or 4 weeks ago, they've knocked off this team by 5 goals. So it's going to be a fascinating game, that reserves game at 11:30 on Friday. So if you're planning on coming along, get along early. It'll be a great game.
And you can watch the likes of Jack Hewitt, Ben Bilston McGillen, Charlie Knott, Fraser Pearce, and a couple of the Whitehead boys, I think, are in this team, as well as Charlie McIsaac's younger brother Hamish is in the team. And you just mentioned Fraser Morrisby is an out-and-out star when it comes to the Cardinals. You've also got in that team Lockie Johnson and Robbie Beckworth, who have also played some senior footy. And Hugh Burne-Jones has also made his way through the senior ranks at different points throughout the year, as has Charlie Schilling. So there's a few names for people to watch when it comes to the reserves, but it's going to be tough to beat the Old Zaverians. They don't tend to lose reserves grand finals all that often.
I know.
Jase.
They beat them 3 or 4 weeks ago, though, so they'll have some confidence, which then leads us into the Premier Men's Grand Final. As we mentioned, live coverage from 1:30 on Friday afternoon on SEN, the SEN app, vafa.com.au. You can live stream the game for free on the VAFA website or on Community TV if you've got a digital subscription to KTV.
And did I read earlier on in the week on vafa.com.au that there is a package where you can get up to the lunch or into the function room and enjoy your afternoon up there. I mean, it's a perfect day for football regardless. So if you're not going up there, then obviously hang out outside. But
Carvery lunch and a drinks package and hosted by yours truly. I mean, there's a lot there to unpack and like.
Absolutely. And what I know is the Peacock, he lives for this day. He somehow manages, I don't know how he does this because he's
crawl out of his
smart.
Nest?
He's a genius, the Peacock.
He's just repairing the plumage at the moment as we speak after
he
Hampton.
lifts his head up from the Excel spreadsheet. He manages to pipe the commentary into the social club, the function room. So you can hear it all unfold through the speakers as you're watching it on the screen. I don't know how he does it. He's a genius, the Peacock. He lives for this day. So by all means, spend the money, come up, hang out up there. Otherwise, go and enjoy it on the hill because it's going to be a perfect day for footy.
It's going to be great. Who wins?
Wow. I think if Harry was playing, I'd have to tip Old Brighton, but I really can't go past Old Scotch.
Even without Aidan Frenetic?
Yeah, I can't go past Old Scotch. The way, as I asked Andy Jelbart a bit earlier on, you can trust Mark Nat's team, and I'm not saying you certainly can't trust Old Brighton, but I have seen...
What are you saying then if you're saying that? I have
seen enough of Old Scotch over the last 3 to 4 years to watch this team develop to where they are now. And I've told you about this over the last couple of weeks. The defensive profile, they are bang on where you want to be when it comes to winning a flag, particularly since 2020 and the COVID year that cancelled footy. 60 points or less has been the number that both St Kevin's and Collegians were able to hold teams to, and that is where Scotch are when we go into this game on Friday. So I am going to tip Old Scotch to win this game of footy.
So Old Brighton have won 10 of their last 11. Their only loss in that period was to Old Scotch by 25 points in round 14. They've won 5 games since by an average of 26 points. Their last 2 wins, both thrillers against St Kevin's by 1 point and 6 points. Old Scotch have won 11 of their last 13. Their 2 losses were back-to-back in round 17 and 18 to Collegians and Zabs, which cost them a spot in the top 2.
And I think those 2 losses are important.
They taught them what they needed to get better at.
A little sting in the tail to go, this is what's going to happen if you're not on your game.
Yep. They've met twice this year. Old Brighton by 26 points in round 6, and then, as we mentioned, Old Scotch by 25 points in round 14. It's going to be a fantastic game.
It most certainly is. So I'm going to go for Scotch, and I'm going to go for them by 19 points. James Tarrant's going to kick the first goal.
Who wins the Jock Nelson?
Charlie Cormack. to keep his good form going off the back of the preliminary final.
Looking forward to that. We'll be back next week with a special edition of the podcast to wrap up Premier Men's Grand Final. And also, coming up post-season, we have our VAFA Awards show. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, this is a great night. There's a couple of awards nights. Of course, there is the
physical one,
the Woodrow medal, and of course the Shona McGuinness medal for the William Buck Premier Women's, the best players in the competition. Now that's coming up. The details of that are on vafa.com.au. But we also then go and have the radio show, Jase, which is great fun. From Premier B all the way down, we announce the top 10 of each section, and hopefully the winners have got their phones ready to chat to us, and we get some interesting interviews, that's for sure. I'm looking forward to those nights. And are we going to have, I don't know, we're just producing on the run here. Susan Miller, she was our voice of the women's last year. She came along and read out the top 10s and asked some great questions. Handsome dipper Josh Herriot, he loves to put the tux on for this one, so I don't know if he's available. Otherwise, Paddy will be a great substitute. And if you're around, Jase, by all means, jump in.
Paddy can come off the bench, can he?
He can, yes.
So, yeah, we'll be putting the awards show together next week.
And you won't want to miss it, let me tell you.
Which will be a lot of fun. So keep in touch on vafa.com.au and our socials for all of that, because, it's going to be a fantastic program celebrating a lot of greatness this year. It's been a wonderful season up and down through the divisions in the VAFA for 2024, which wraps us up for the love of the game for this week. Best of luck to both teams, Old Brighton and Old Scotch. Mm-hmm. And Joey, I very much look forward to your coverage with Paddy and Petchy and Sats and Matty Donald and Cal Cummins on the boundary on Friday afternoon for Old Brighton and Old Scotch. It's going to be a wonderful day of footy.
We cannot wait for it. vafa.com.au is where you go for all your news and views and all the details leading into a bumper Friday grand final. We'll see you there.
Thanks, MECWACARE.